I surrender to the Almighty my mind, speech and body. Vanakkam, we are currently reading the book called Thirukkural, which is an important book given to us by our Tamil ancestors. Even though it was composed thousands of years ago, we still have the teachings carefully preserved and it is still being read today. The book contains important learnings of the ancient Tamil civilization about how to live our married life in harmony with the natural order. The author of this book is Thiruvalluvar. He is a very wise man or a jnani, and it is said that this book is written by his yoga kachi. A yogi is someone who has managed to detach the weird from the body and is able to become one with nature, and that is how they understand many truths about creation. Whatever they see in their yoga kachi is considered as the highest level of truth. Therefore, what information they give us is neither a lie nor is distorted by the natural instruments. The natural instruments are our sense organs, the eyes, ears, mouth, etc., and our mind. We understand the world using our sense organs and the mind, but the jnanis, they go beyond the body and the mind, and therefore they are able to give us the truth as it is. That is why the words of the jnanis are considered as agama pramanam, which is the highest form of truth. I have spoken about these topics in my previous videos. Now, what is this book all about? Thirukkural is a book on Aram. The term Aram refers to the order found in nature. Thiruvalluvar says that just as how there is some order in the functioning of the universe, the order in which the planets revolve around the sun in a certain orbit, or how a colony of ants organize themselves, or how the bees organize themselves into a functional unit, humans also can adopt a certain order in their lives, which will allow them to not only run a smooth life, but also achieve fame and eventually something called as moksha, which is a state of never-ending bliss. So that order of life for the humans is what is discussed in this book. It applies to the life of a householder or a married person, and it is called as Il Aram. It shows how humans can immerse in the various attachments of life by way of marriage and raising children and having a family, and how to live such a life and enjoy the different attachments and reach fame. Achieving fame seems to be the goal of Illaram, and when such fame is reached, humans tend to look for something bigger and better. And the book says that there is something called as Veeda or Mukti, and it is a space of ultimate bliss, much bigger and happier than fame. And this book shows a way to get that as well. That path is called as Thevaram, and it is a path in which we learn to let go of the attachments, and thereby we learn to expand our circle of loved ones. That is, we learn to love all forms of life around us. And only a person who has learned to immerse in the experiences of life will be able to let go of the attachments. So, Illaram and Thuravaram are the two Arams discussed in this book. How is the book structured? The book is divided into three big sections called as the Paal. First, we have the Arathu Paal, and then the Porut Paal and the Inbathu Paal. The Arathu Paal talks about the Illaram and the Thuravaram that I just spoke about. The Porut Paal talks about principles of management, and the Inbathu Paal talks about the principles of pleasure. So, Aram, Porul and Inbam, which are the three main sections of our life, are covered in this book. And that is why they say that this one book is enough as a guide for a person in order to live a good life and reach Mukti. We are currently following the commentaries written by Parimal Alagar, and he wrote an introduction to the book called as a Urai Payiram. So we finished with that, and then we enter the Arathu Paal. The Arathu Paal is divided into smaller sections called as Iyals. We entered the first Iyal called as the Payira viyal, and in Payira viyal we entered the first chapter called as a Kadavul Vaazhthu. Kadavul Vaazhthu means in praise of God. So in this chapter, we will see what the Tamils understood as God. We finished the first Kural. The first Kural said that just as how the sound A is the fundamental sound of all languages, God is a fundamental force from which everything else originates. And before we go into the second Kural, we need to understand a little bit about the idea of God in this first Kural. Now, this book Thirukkural is neutral in terms of religion, that is, the author Thiruvalluvar doesn't subscribe to any one particular philosophy or religion in writing this book. But since I learned this book from my guru, who comes from a Shaivite tradition where God Shiva is worshipped as the supreme God, my explanations tend to come from the Shaivite literature. So, in Shaivite tradition, God is viewed from two broad perspectives. When describing the features of God, they say that broadly speaking, God exists in two states. The first state of existence or the first level of existence is called as the Swaroopam state, and the second state is called as the Thadathai. What does Swaroopam and Thadathai mean? In colloquial Tamil language, Swaroopam means the external or the physical appearance. When they say the Swaroopam of the statue of Krishna is beautiful, it means that the visual appearance of the idol or the statue of Krishna is beautiful, the decorations and all that. But that is not the meaning of Swaroopam that they are referring to. Swaroopam level of God means God exists in a state that is beyond the understanding of the human mind. Whether it is Buddha or Jesus or Allah or Krishna, anyone, the omnipresent God cannot be fully described in a manner that can be understood completely by our mind. It is not possible to capture an entire ocean of water in a small cup, isn't it? So similarly, our mind is too small to fully grasp the idea of God. Our mind doesn't have that kind of capacity. But just because we cannot fully understand this nature of God, does it mean that God doesn't exist? No, our mind cannot grasp such a nature of God, but such a state of God is there. Why do I say this? Because many Tamil scholars have written about this nature of God in their poems. For example, in Thiruvasagam, one of the greatest works in Tamil literature, the poet Manika Vasagar writes, Sittamum sella sechiyan kanga, nool unarvu unara nunniyon kanga. It means you cannot grasp God with your deepest mind nor with your bookish knowledge. Another scholar is there, his name is Sekidar. He was a minister in the court of King Anabaya Cholan. He wrote a book called Periya Puranam in order to guide the king about how to understand God. And in the very first line itself he writes, Ulagelam unarndu odar kariyavan. It means no one in this world can fully understand or explain fully about God. See, his book is about understanding God, but in the very first line itself he writes, it is impossible to do that. Then might as well close the book and forget about it, isn't it? But Sekidar knows about us. He is only saying to first declare this big truth. So they say that we have to first acknowledge this truth that God cannot be fully captured by the human mind. This is the first understanding of God. And that state of God is called as Swaroopam. In the Swaroopam level, no one can describe God as having a physical form or a color or body parts or anything. There is a poetic work called Thevaram, which is the 6th Tirumurai, in which Thirunavukarasar says that Ippadiyan, Indirathan, Ivvanathan, Ivan Irevan Endredi Katonade. It means we cannot say that God has this form specifically or this color and these features. So clearly he is also talking about the Swaroopam state of God. And many learned people in the past and the current times have written about this state of God, wherein they say that God cannot be fully described or grasped by our mind. That is called as a Swaroopam state of God. In Shaivism, they call this as Swaropa Shivam. Now what we see in the temples and the paintings as God Shiva, as a human form with a hair knot and a moon and a snake and Trishul and all that, Swaroopam Shivam is above this physical form. The Swaroopam Shivam has no name and no form. And this is a good thing because since he doesn't have a gender or a name or a form, it is said that he will respond to all names and all forms. See, I have this form and my name is Mohana. So when someone says or calls my name, hey Mohana, I would respond. But if someone says, hey Leena, I wouldn't respond because that is not my name. I have a specific name for myself. But since the Swaroopam Shivam has no name or form, it is said that he will respond to all names. If you call him as Shiva or Perumal or Jesus or Allah, he has to respond. So the nameless and the formless God can be worshipped with any name and any form that we like, and that state of nameless and formless God, which cannot be understood by the mind, is called as a Swaroopam state. Now, having established that God has no form or no shape and he cannot be understood by the mind, the question that comes to us naturally is, what is the use of having such a God? Let him be ununderstandable, undescribable. Does it make any difference to our lives, whether he exists or not? So, in order to help humans, it is said that God comes down from his Swaroopam state to a state called Thadathai, which we can understand. And in Thadathai, he comes down in 3 different states of existence. At the first level, he comes down in a way which can be understood only by people with a very sharp mind and a high level of intelligence. You see, for such people, they don't need to see a physical form or a shape to understand something. They can grasp the abstract things easily. Some people are like that. And so for such people, God comes in the formless state. And this formless state is called as Aruvam. It sounds similar to the Swaroopam state, isn't it? But there is a difference. While in the Swaroopam state, God cannot be described in the words even for the most intelligent mind, the God here in the Aruvam state can be described and understood by the mind with the highest level of intelligence. Then God comes down one step below, and in the next level, God assumes a form. Not necessarily a human form, but some kind of a symbol, like how we have the lingam in the Hindu tradition, or the cross, or the crescent, or a star, some symbolic representation. And this state is called as the Aru-Uruvam. There are no body parts or human-like structure, but there is some symbolic representation, and this state is called as the Aru-Uruvam. And those who are in the next level of intelligence will be able to grasp God in the Aru-Uruvam state. Again, there are only some people who can understand God in this level. There are still many who need a physical form with familiar features. So now we come to the last step where God assumes a human or an animal form with arms and legs and eyes and all the other physical features that we are familiar with. And this state of God is called as the Uruvam state, Uruvam. God appears as a physical form that the devotee is familiar with. An ordinary student or a devotee can grasp only when he or she can see a form that he can understand. Many people wonder why in Hinduism there are so many gods and forms. You can have 10 more also, there is nothing wrong with that, because whatever form you want, God will come in that form for you. We will visit that idea in the next Kural. So going from the bottom to the top, first we have the Uruvam, and then one step above is the Aru-Uruvam, and then we have the Aruvam, where God is worshipped in the formless state, and above all of these things we have the Swaroopam. Many authors mention that Aruvam is Swaroopam, but that is incorrect. Both are two different things. See, when I say that God is not having a form and is worshipped in the formless state, my mind still can catch that idea, isn't it? Our mind can process that information and understand it. So that is not Swaroopam. Swaroopam means we cannot understand it. Just be silent, that's all. And that is a real God. So there is a gradual order in which the God is worshipped. At the lowermost level, we have the first step and the easiest one. We have the idol worship. It is the lowermost level, but it is a necessary step. I need to see and touch and hold something to believe in its existence. So it is for this reason we cannot say that idol worship is wrong. When a child is in the first grade and is learning to add two numbers, what is 3 plus 5, the child will take 3 fingers in one hand and 5 fingers in the other and will start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. This is the necessary first step. That is how you should teach beginners. But in the graduate degree program, a student can give the answer to this question in a flash. There we don't take fingers and count 1, 2, 3 and all that, right? Only someone who has undergone that basic training in the first grade can sail through easily in the graduate level of study. So similarly, the worship of God is also structured. At the basic level, we have the Uruvam state, and then gradually we go up and reach the Aruvam state. Now, why am I giving this information today? In the first Kural, when Thiruvalluvar says that Agara Mudala Eduthallam Adi Bhagavan Udattrai Ulagu, which translates to just like A is the foundation sound of all the languages, God is a fundamental force for creation. A question arises as to which God is Thiruvalluvar talking about. And for this, Parimari Alagar clarifies that the God that Thiruvalluvar is referring to in the first Kural is the Swaroopam state of God. So this is the last bit of information from Kural 1 that I had to give. Let me just quickly summarize. Shaivism says that God exists in 2 levels, the Swaroopam and the Thadathai. Under Thadathai, there is Uruvam, Aru-Uruvam and Aruvam states of God. The lowermost level is called as a Uruvam, where idols and human-like figures are used for worship. The next level is the Aru-Uruvam, where only symbols are used in worship. And in the last state is the Aruvam state, where God is worshipped in the formless state. Each of these states are necessary to cater to all kinds of people. I personally like this kind of a structured approach to worship. Not only is it inclusive of all kinds of people, it also has room for more adaptations. And there is no need to fight and argue as to which kind of worship is better. This makes me wonder how evolved this civilization must have been to come up with such a beautiful idea, that too in worship. This brought some clarity for me to understand the different kinds of worship that I see around. So I hope that you will also find some clarity on why there are many idols and symbols in Hinduism and why different people adopt different kinds of worship. So with this note, I shall end here. Thank you all for listening. Nandri, Vanakkam.